Hi there, I'm Shadow. As artists tend to do, I have OCs, a lot of OCs, and I really want to yell into the void about them. I have so many OC worlds and stories, but I'm starting with my oldest one. And also, I've been writing this little project of mine, and you all can read it for free. The link is in the description, but first, please stay so I can explain what my story is about. Snake Hill is a story I started making back in 2018. This was my first attempt at trying to fit characters into a coherent world. My first attempt wasn't very good. The story was originally called Project Restart and focused on science-y things and anomalies. I scrapped almost everything except the characters because I really loved them. One of these characters was Dan. I adored this thing so much and I wanted to do something with him. So I traumatized him. I mean, even originally, Danny was pretty traumatized, but I decided to put my boy through the ringer. And that's when I came up with the idea of Snake Hill, a town where both the living and the dead roam, and also a cult town. It started out as just a street called Snake Hill Road, with a very haunted mansion on it, later turned into a town deep in the northern woods. Which means I've placed it near the Appalachian Mountains, because why not? Mainly because of where I lived at the time of fleshing the story out, and the woods just being like that. Let me just read to you the description and summary I wrote here for the book. Let me read that. Danny has been able to see ghosts for his entire life, and living in the town of Snake Hill, he sees a lot of them. While living among ghosts isn't an issue, it's what the publicity with the town can bring. That, unfortunately, includes 2 ghost hunters who want to film all through the town. Yeah, I know that sounds boring, but hold on, what chapter is it? What chapter is it that it gets, crazy? There are 30 chapters in total, including a prologue and epilogue. What chapter gets crazy? Act 2. Act 2 starts, kind of building it up. Oh, no, it's also cut into 4 acts. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. It's cut into 4 acts. Well, Act 2 starts building it up. I would say about chapter 13, it starts kind of building it up. And then chapter 18 in Act 3, it kind of just crashes down. We're on a roller coaster of, scary, and then chapter 18 crashes down, and then we see horrific stuff. I originally wanted to, make this as, a graphic novel, because, I love art. I love art, and I love doing art. But realistically, it would be smarter and less time-consuming for me to first publish the book and then later make it into a graphic novel, which was the smartest option for me to choose. So I decided to do that instead. I will make a graphic novel for this. I will make a graphic novel version, because I love art and I love drawing my silly characters in horrific situations, I guess. I don't know. That should be about it. Unless I'm forgetting something. Anyways, my boy, time to talk about my characters. Because, why not? Why wouldn't I talk about my characters? I love talking about my characters. Because I'm crazy. Yeah. Danny's design changed so much over the years until I was finally happy with it. Then I changed his design again. Because I can. Danny's whole thing is that he can see ghosts. He's lived in Snake Hill all 28 years of his life with his parents and 2 brothers. He actually didn't used to look like this. Instead, he one day woke up and just looked like this. He doesn't remember how or what happened, and was definitely having a panic attack about it. But his mother knows what happened, and just never tried telling him or anyone about it. He can't ask her now, though, because she's dead. And unlike a lot of other people in town, she actually never shows up as a ghost. That worried Danny a lot, and he thought it was because the town was convinced his mother was cursed. No, I won't tell you any more about that. I'm not spoiling my own book. You would think, because of how he looks, the town people would feel off around him, and because of his mother. But, Danny actually looks a lot like the three entities the town worships, so most of them don't mind him at all. He even has a job at the church as, like, a sort of groundskeeper. So, because Danny can see and talk to ghosts, in the story, Danny always has to be the one to deal with the dead and gets dragged into situations unwillingly by either the town or his friends. That later leads into dealing with horrors that only a stoner could tell you about, but I won't get too far into that. Danny journals everything paranormal that happens to him with books and his camcorder. He also lives in the attic of the house and has a giant corkboard of ghost photos and sightings, along with blurry photos of different cryptids. This is like touch-tone telephone behavior. I forgot to mention that he still lives in Snake Hill with his dad and brothers. I don't know why I didn't write that down. Danny, like I said, has two brothers. His brother James is older by only 2 years. I know I'm not supposed to have favorite OCs, but James is the favorite. James has changed some over the years, but not by much. His design is similar enough to his first design, but he originally had like a half, like the thing Chris from Deltarune has over their shoulder. But it was red and gold. Also, James is dead and shows up in the story as a ghost. But he's able to interact and mess with people a lot more than other ghosts. Which could mean nothing. This also ties into Danny's insane grieving issues and unhealthy coping mechanisms. Yay! My boy! No, I'm projecting. Anyways, I've actually written a lot of lore for James, and I might have been projecting a little when writing. I wasn't going to therapy when writing his lore, so I'm sure that will shine through. You might have noticed the way he's dressed, and that's because James actually died on Halloween night. I don't want to say how, because I want to leave that out until I publish that part of the book, but it was pretty traumatizing for everyone, and James doesn't like talking about it because he remembers every bit of it. James was actually adopted by Danny's parents after James's bio parents abandoned him. His past was pretty messed up and riddled with abuse and neglect, but did have a good life after that, up until his death. I also don't think his bio family would know about his death, considering they were never in Snake Hill, but also his crappy bio parents wouldn't care anyways. I forgot to mention, so Dr. Scott, James's adoptive father, is a psychiatrist, and had James as a patient. He grew close to his new son and took him in after being abandoned. I'll circle back around to talk about Dr. Scott later. I didn't find a good place to put this, but I'm going to put it here. James died at 18, but would have been 30 in the current story. Danny's younger brother, Adriel, is actually much younger by Danny by 13 years, and is 15. First off, Adriel hasn't changed at all, except for his backstory. Adriel was one of my first OCs I made that weren't for an existing fandom, and I just didn't want to change his design. I'm not going to talk about his original story, but back in the Project Restart phase, he was the main character instead of Danny. Anyways, Adriel is a bit of a mutant, but the town of Snake Hill will tell you it was one of the 3 that made him like that, which it was. Unlike Danny... Wait, hold on. I just remembered I didn't have the 3 written up until now. I will talk about the 3 later. I'll talk about the 3 later. I should have talked about that before my characters, but you know, it's whatever, man. It's whatever. Dude. Unlike Danny, Adriel was born like that, and the town, once again, blames it on the boy's mother. Adriel in the story isn't ever allowed to follow after Danny and James, since they don't want him to get hurt. So they leave him with his friends so they can go banish the horrors. Since Adriel is almost always by himself, his dad's a busy doctor, his brother is dealing with things, and he can't see his other brother because he doesn't have ghost sight. So he has to find and make his own adventures instead. Like befriending a werewolf and almost killing a man. He tells no one of this, and you cannot get him to. I do have some more things planned out for Adriel. Nothing bad, but nothing concrete yet. Oh, yeah, so since Adriel's a mutant, I based him off a bullet ant. And yes, his name starts with an A because of ant. Boo me all you want. My twisted sense of humor will be the death of me. I've also projected something to each of my boys. Adriel is autistic and struggles a lot with things like socializing and talking, oftentimes going nonverbal and using ASL. James has ADHD and has a habit of collecting really weird things, like really old coins and lighters. Danny has OCD and depression, the latter mainly caused by being able to see walking corpses all the time and worrying about the future. Now, Dr. Connor Scott is the single father of the 3 boys. Like I said, he's a psychiatrist, and used to live out of Snake Hill, but moved there after he married his late wife. Dr. Scott isn't religious or superstitious, so the town doesn't really interact with him. It's not like they don't like him, it's that they don't trust him. Not like he's there most of the time, though, since the hospital he works at is like an hour away, and the work schedule of a doctor is the longest thing ever. It was really hard on him when his wife died only a year after Adriel was born. Then 2 years after that, James died. When he is home, though, it's usually at midnight, so he only really gets to see Danny. On a side note, Danny has just as bad of a sleep schedule as his father. Dr. Scott really wants to believe Danny when he talks about the ghosts he sees, but he just thinks his son is hallucinating and having mental breakdowns all the time. That's what started Danny's journaling. Dr. Scott wants to leave the town of Snake Hill, but worries about what might happen if he does. He would hate himself if he was the reason one of his sons were hurt. Dr. Scott keeps a whole box of sentimental things from his late wife, but doesn't let any of his sons see or know where it is. Which could mean nothing. I will also say, Connor's relationship with his wife wasn't the best in the end, and they would often end up fighting, but he still cares for his late wife. Dr. Scott has a twin sister, and I do plan on her showing up at one point, but she doesn't show up in the first book. When Connor's wife died, his sister was more than willing to babysit his kids. Since Adriel didn't have his mother growing up, he views his aunt as more of that motherly figure. The boys, of course, know about their father's side of the family and have gotten to visit them. But they know next to nothing about their mothers. Not even when she was alive did her side get mentioned once. I wonder why. I wonder why. Oh, anyways, back to my world building. The 3 sisters are 3 entities the town of Snake Hill worships. The 3 are sort of celestial beings that look a bit goat-like. One of the sisters is Deathly Roses, or her more common name, Withered Rose. Now, these creatures are very real and interact with the world and town almost daily, but Rose does it the most. The sisters have different things they do and watch over. Rose takes life away and sort of guards over the souls. I must admit, I did take inspiration from Greek mythology for this one. Rose does act like an antagonist in the story, but more like a force of nature. She is herself, death in form. She is the main reason Snake Hill is a ghost town, and also why the woods surrounding it is so unsafe. The only reason the town itself is more like a safe haven is because of all the shrines around the town to not only keep anything away from the town, but to also deter people from leaving the safe town and see what's hidden behind the fog. I have so many things planned for Rose, but I don't want to spoil my own story, so I'll keep quiet for now. Rose's other sisters don't really show up except for Velvet Feathers, who has a slight part in the story. I almost forgot to mention, but I've called these things, these beings, Kozel. They're also called Niveshni, and sometimes rarely called Kozi. I don't know if that's right. Though this story takes place in nowhere, West Virginia, these names are something the three sisters are referred to. And I did write these down when studying Russian, like a while ago. That's all the characters I've fully written, and now I want to show you my voice claims for almost all the characters. But before that, I know one major character is missing from this, but that's because I want him to be a little surprise in the book, so he's not here. And I didn't want to draw him either, so...
I guess we have something in common.
You eat popcorn when you're depressed, too?
No. Sounds like the writers are just phoning it in, but just in case, we better go check it out.
He didn't see it. Draw his attention to it. Make a wallet sound. Wallet.
The real thing is much more personal and thoughtful, and I really hope you like it, because if you don't, I will just be crushed.
Is this truly what you desire? Nothing shall last.
Okay, yeah, I think that's it. Bye, I guess.